Hi, everyone, and welcome to NBTV. This is our weekly Crypto Beat show where we bring you all of the biggest headlines from the week and bring on special guests to dive into all of it with us. So I'm delighted to have a bunch of people joining us in today's segment. We have Tom Crown, who's a very well-known YouTuber. We have Gabriel Shipton, who is Julian Assange's brother. We have Paul Puey, CEO of Edge Wallet, diving into a bunch of fun things. So here's a rundown of what the show's going to look like. We're going to start off by talking about Metaverse token crash. What's going on with all of the tokens associated with the metaverse? We've got India's crypto tax, a lot of implications there for the crypto world at large. Binance SMS scams, so some things you need to be aware of if you are a crypto user. You may be targeted by this. We have the FreeAssangeDAO. So excited about this and super excited to dive into this with Gabriel. And we've got AOPP. It sounds very jargony, but this is a really important protocol that is being implemented and has created a huge amount of controversy in the space. Some people say that this is a privacy nightmare. Other people say that it's completely overblown, and we're going to dive into all of those details. But Tom, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Naomi. It's good to see you again.
Absolutely. Always love a show with Tom because I just, my glasses aren't as cool as yours, but I try my best.
Well, we'll have to get you a pair.
Can you please? All right, we'll do that. Next show with you, we're all going to wear the glasses. It's going to be great. All right, let's start off and talk about Metaverse because we saw just a giant crash in the markets. We had Facebook's earnings report come out. It turns out that they've lost like $10 billion. Turns out that it's the first time in history that they haven't been adding new users to the platform. And as a result, you have all these repercussions, ripples across the entire crypto space for metaverse tokens. We saw AXS, Sand, we saw Gala fell, like giant market crashes for anything related to the metaverse. And this seems to come as a result of a company called Meta, their earnings report coming out. So walk me through that. What's going on in the markets there?
Well, a long time ago, I remember people saying that crypto would eventually act more like stocks. And it's funny to see stocks acting more like crypto now. We're seeing these wild swings, Facebook overextending really far with the metaverse kind of whole rebranding. But, I think they had a double hit. Apple has, they added an opt-out privacy. I think that was a big hit for Facebook. And they've had account sign-up slow down. So how does this line up with the metaverse? Really, the whole market saw a broader correction. I took a look at these charts, AXS, Gala, Sand, and there isn't anything too out of the ordinary. We saw pretty much the entire market fall. They fell, and as of now, they're back to where they were before Facebook, had this crash. So I think that it's more of a broader market correlation, really, than it is to just Facebook stock.
Yeah, I mean, it's a broader market correlation, but it was kind of funny. And I think a lot of people were kind of amused that you have a company called Meta and they're delving right into the metaverse and then they plummet. I mean, Facebook, or should I say Meta's stock price, just went crazy. It just like straight down, red candles there. And then you see all these repercussions across the metaverse world as well. And it's kind of an interesting scenario. But I also wanted to bring up something more about like Facebook, and I've got to stop calling them Facebook. Meta just hasn't like taken a hold on my tongue yet. It's hard for me to call them Meta, and I think most people are still like, I don't, what is Meta? I really still don't get it. But one thing is interesting is that at the start of this year, Apple put out this new privacy policy where they said if you want to track people now have to opt in. They actually have to allow you. And Facebook at the time said this is going to lose us $10 billion worth of revenue. Then their earnings report comes out, reports come out, and they don't look good. How much do you think that this played into all of this catalyst effects across the markets?
Absolutely huge for Meta. I can't even say it. Facebook. I can't say
right?
Absolutely huge. It's not just the literal taking away of that data that Apple introduced, but it's the uncertainty for Facebook's future. That's their business model, is selling data, and Apple's move here, that can continue. Apple can clamp down, other hardware manufacturers can clamp down. I think it's just a foreshadowing for their company, and it doesn't look good. And I think that that is absolutely giving investors senses of uncertainty and not a good outlook.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see Meta having such a big amount of influence across the whole metaverse world, and then you have developers in the ecosystem saying that, yeah, Facebook's as this Facebook's parent firm Meta, people are looking to them, and they do have a direct impact on the market perception of other metaverses because it's so intrinsic in their brand now. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, whether the metaverse is going to be this open system, or whether now that Facebook's rebranded, whether they are going to have more control over that. But let's move on to the next topic here. So I wanted to dive into what's going on in India at the moment, the start of the week. We heard some big announcements about crypto taxes. Do you want to dive into some details of that, Tom, kind of bring the audience up to date on all that?
Yeah, well, India introduced, it looks like, a 30% tax on profits with no deductions or exemptions, and that's on par with their highest tax bracket. To my knowledge, I'm not an Indian tax expert, but it really seems like a move to push out speculation. It seems a little maybe not thought out on, in my opinion, going forward. It's they're looking to rein in that speculation. And I think it's really just going to result in a hindering of India's ability or willingness to invest. You know, crypto is global. And so if one country decides, okay, we're going to tax this extra or flat out even try to ban it, well, that capital is just going to flow somewhere else where it's going to find an easier on ramp into the market.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's not just the 30% that you mentioned. The government also introduced a 1% tax deducted at source on crypto trading. That eats into the profit margins of anyone who's a day trader. And so there are a lot of people who are not happy about that. But I mean, this time last year, India was talking about banning cryptocurrency completely. So the fact that now they're adding a tax on it, yeah, it's not terrible, but it's not outlawed yet. So we'll see what happens there. Do you think there's any hope for these rules to be overturned? I mean, India really does not look favorably on crypto at all.
You know, it's kind of a double-edged sword too, because though it isn't positive news or regulation, I guess, in their minds, at least the retail's minds, it does give some clarity to institutional or corporate investment. And again, it's not positive, but it is some clarity, and some clarity is going to give more confidence than nothing for, say, institutional investors. And so it could have some positives. The 1% tax seems wild to me. It's really going to kill algorithmic trading, which is the majority, I would say, of traded volume. Maybe not just in crypto, but in all markets. It's a wild move, and I really think they're just going to see capital flee. I don't think it's going to play the way they want it to.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I mean, we've already seen that happen in other countries where they come down with a too heavy hand in regulation and everyone just leaves. I mean, look at the bit license in New York. We had a mass exodus when that happened. And so I think that, yeah, you're just going to have people, there's going to be a lot of VPNs, there's going to be a lot of the under the table crypto usage. And it's like Amir Taki, this OG crypto hero, I think, in the space said, we're kind of bifurcating this world. We've got RegFi and we've got DarkFi now. We've got these very divergent streams of where cryptocurrency is going to go. But let's move on. Our final story for this block. We've got Binance SMS Scam. So we had CZ alert the crypto community on Twitter. He said that there is a massive SMS phishing scam at the moment that is targeting Binance customers. So give us the rundown on that. You know, why do people need to be aware when they get random URLs sent in SMSs? Because this happens quite frequently, actually.
Oh my goodness. Please, everyone, never click a random link, period. I will give props to Binance. They have been transparent in the past about things like this. And I think that's important because we, as retail, we're not really aware of it. We're used to this safe world. I said it earlier today. It's like losing my credit card is one of the least worrisome things in my life because there's no punishment. I'm not going to lose money. The bank is going to reimburse me, etc. That's not how crypto works. It's the opposite of how crypto works. So if you get any texts, I know I've gotten them from Amazon, and it wasn't from Amazon, where it's saying, oh, something about your order. You need to be careful. Just because it comes from a number and says, hey, I'm this or this, it doesn't mean you're safe to click the link. If you're in crypto, you have to be very careful with where you log in specifically. Phishing attacks are everywhere. I have a common one come to my email where it says I'm renewing my subscription to Norton Antivirus, and they're going to bill me $150. And if I don't want to, I have to click here. Don't click links. Go right to the URL. Bookmarks are your best friend. If you're ever in doubt at all, just immediately go to the source directly. Don't go through any kind of email link or through any kind of SMS, especially. Link.
Absolutely. Such good advice. I stand by 100%. I mean, it gets even more insidious. I don't want to scare people. I know you come to my channel for privacy tips as well and security tips. And so I don't want to like scare you. But honestly, if you're, for example, staying at a hotel and you've used unsecured Wi-Fi and they know that you've stayed at that hotel, you may get an email targeting you directly that says, hey, here's your receipt from that hotel. Click here for the link. Like, scams like this happen all the time. You just cannot click on links, unsolicited links. And even if they are solicited, make sure that you know exactly what you're clicking on and that that person themselves hasn't been compromised. It can't be stressed enough how vigilant people need to be. But great tips there, Tom. I'm going to let you go for this block, but so awesome having you on, sharing your insight for this breaking crypto news. Always a pleasure chatting with you.
Great being here. Thanks, Naomi.
Absolutely. So we're going to move on to our next block, and huge news that just came out. We've got a FreeAssangeDAO was just launched. Now, I had Gabriel Shipton, who is Assange's brother, on the show. We put out this long form interview. I'm going to play you some highlights from that now.
I'm Gabriel Shipton. I'm Julian Assange's brother. The National Security State just doesn't want its secrets exposed, and they're using the Espionage Act to clamp down on publishers. They're afraid of leaks. They're afraid of being surveilled. Julian turned the lens of surveillance around back onto them. They want Julian dead. There's a worldwide movement of people who see this case for what it is. It's a criminalisation of telling the truth, a criminalisation of journalism.
A criminalization of telling the truth, a criminalization of journalism. He hits the nail on the head there. I actually want to invite and welcome onto the show right now Gabriel Shipton, Julian Assange's brother. It is so wonderful having you on the show here. No, we're muted. I'll do that again.
Oh, no.
So wonderful having you on the show, Gabriel.
Yes, good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So we're having you back today because there's been huge news, and it's right off the heels of the FreeAssangeDAO that was incredibly successful in raising money for a great cause. And now we have a FreeAssangeDAO. I want you to walk me through the details of this because this gets me excited. Like this sort of leveraging of cutting edge technology and the decentralization of trust into something that is towards a common good and like such a wonderful cause. It gets me so excited. And you really spearheaded this whole thing. So walk me through what this DAO is and what this NFT collection is.
Yeah, so it's the DAO sort of formed off the back of the FreeAssangeDAO. AssangeDAO sort of was started up maybe last year around December. They started talking. Group of sort of old school cypherpunks. Amir Taki, I think you mentioned before, is involved. Harry Halpin has been advising. He's with NIM. So yeah, they sort of started forming last year, and then we announced this collaboration of Puck, the NFT creator Puck and Julian, and that's when things really started moving with the DAO. They sort of got everything together and really launched to go and bid on this NFT, which is auctioning on the 7th of Feb at 9 a.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, and there are two things. Sorry, go ahead.
So I'll just say the DAO's been raising, they've been raising funds for the last, I think, probably 24 or, a little bit more than 24 hours, and they've managed to raise 2,736 ETH, which is just, astonishing amount in that.
So we're looking at over $7 million right now.
That's right, and that's just a massive show of support from the crypto community. An outpouring of support for Julian, which is amazing. That's all funds that will go to support, to Julian's defense fund, and it's just incredible.
Yeah. So there are a few things I want to touch on here. So the first is NFTs as a fundraising tool, because I mean, the Assange Defense Fund, I mean, this is one of the most important things we can be fighting for right now, especially as a journalist. This hits close to home. I got so emotional. I did a show earlier today and I was just like getting really riled up about this topic, because the extradition of the US to the US of Julian Assange, I mean, and his persecution over the last decade, him just being detained and his life being taken away from him, it's such an important issue. I don't think people realize the ramifications of this. But his defense fund has been accepting donations for like a decade, right? And yet you mentioned 24 hours. And in that time, we've raised over $7 million because we're offering something in return. You know, people get this to bid on this NFT. And so it just is this incredible fundraising mechanism that seems to align incentives. So walk me through like the decision to go with an NFT and why you thought that that was a good vehicle for raising awareness about this case.
Yeah, I think firstly, an NFT is a way to sort of tell a different side of the story. Usually, I'm always on about this, but how we learn about Julian is through through the media, through media headlines, or how typically people learn about Julian's circumstances or about him is through interviews, or it's always through a media lens. With an NFT, um, you know, the great thing about it is you're able to tell a different story. What is actually at the heart of this. We're not talking about Julian's character. We're not talking about his prison conditions or his health or anything like that. We're talking about what is the heart of the issue, and the NFT collection Puck has produced is called Censored. So it just strikes right at the heart of what the issue is really about. Julian's been silenced. He's been had no voice for the last 3 years. He's been detained for 11 years. So his freedom is sort of linked to this NFT in a way. In that we can tell the story about how he's been censored, how he is not free, and really putting the focus on that through the NFT. But it's also a chance for people to um, give to a good cause, but also receive something in return, like an NFT or an artwork by this amazing creator, Puck.
Yeah, and not just Puck. I mean, it's a collaboration with Assange, and so it's kind of bringing you closer to him. And he's such a hero for so many people. You yourself, he's a hero for you. He's just, affected all of us with the revelations that he's brought forward. The other part of this that I wanted to address was the DAO side, because what I noticed early on, before the Free Rust DAO came about, there was just the Free Rust NFT auction, and it's really great. And I realized that I was priced out of the auction so early on. I really wanted to contribute, but people are like, I'm going to, here's 1 million that I'm bidding. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm out. And I really wanted to contribute. Then this, DAO came along and said, actually, we can fractionalize the ownership. You can contribute $5 if that's, if you want to be a part of it, but that's all you have. Or you can contribute 1 million, and someone else can also contribute 1 million, and they're not bidding against each other. They're working together. They were able to raise so much more money. And I've seen that with the AssangeDAO as well. Rather than pricing people out of a bidding auction, people are able to collaborate and pool their resources and just raise so much more money than they otherwise would. So walk me through this DAO structure. How can people get involved? Because this is, it's really cool.
Yeah, so people can go to AssangeDAO.org. There's a juice box raise going. You need Ethereum, obviously, but if you go to AssangeDAO.org, it's all there. The Twitter handle is AssangeDAO. Follow them on Twitter, and there's all these instructions there, even to contribute privately or anonymously. So that's a sort of an amazing first, is that you can contribute to this DAO, through sort of washed ETH, which allows you to contribute privately, which is, I think, a bit of that's a first on these DAO structures. And the DAO will bid for the NFT, and people participate. It's a chance, like you say, it's a sort of democratization or a decentralized way of people coming together to bid on an NFT, and it means that people can get involved and they're not sort of priced out by these whales. So they can partake and get involved in the DAO, and then bid on this NFT, and potentially everyone can be an owner of this historical NFT.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you guys have my full support. This issue, it just hits really close to home, and I think a lot of people don't realize how desperate a state we are in at the moment with regards to freedom of the press, how it's already really been undermined, and how we need to fight against it if we want a society that doesn't descend into an Orwellian nightmare, as you spoke so eloquently about in your interview. But Gabriel, this has been so wonderful chatting with you. If anyone wants to dive into our 1 hour long interview, it was mind blowing. I mean, I've looked into this case a lot, and I learned so much just from chatting with Gabriel, and you've just done tremendous work as a spokesperson educating people. So thank you so much, Gabriel. This has been really great, and best of luck.
Thanks, Naomi. Thank you.
Super. So those details will be posted in the description below. So make sure you check those out if you want to participate. It's such a good cause, and you're really participating in a movement, this worldwide movement to fight for freedom of the press. But now we're going to go into our final segment of the show. We're talking about AOPP. What is AOPP? Why are you using jargon? I don't understand what you're talking about. Yes, I know. We're going to explain it all to you, and I have Paul Puey on the show to help explain it. He is much better at diving into these technically dense topics than I am. Paul, welcome.
Thanks for having me again, Naomi. It's been a while, so happy to explain this. Definitely much debated. It's been a while. It has been, yeah. But it took a protocol with a whole lot of debate and people getting fired up to bring us back together. So I guess that is what I can be, I can thank AOPP for that.
Is that silver lining? So, yeah. Thank you, AOPP, for ruffling privacy feathers. So let's dig into this, because I'm a privacy person. You know that. I am all for privacy, And Paul, you did not implement Zcash on your wallet until you could implement it shielded, because you were like, nope, non-shielded Zcash. I don't want a part of it. I want to do it shielded. Like, you're a privacy guy. So let's dive into this, because I want to give a bit of a backstory. We've got this travel rule stuff going on. We've got these, hosted wallet rules going on. Basically, the government wanted to put in all these KYC requirements for anyone who's taking money off an exchange, bringing to their own wallet. And now we've got these protocols that are coming into place to facilitate that. Half the community is saying, this is terrible. I saw Samurai tweeted out and said, there were all of these people who removed it from their wallet. We've got, Sparrow Wallet, Blue Wallet, Trezor. They've all removed this. And Samurai is like, yes, because privacy. But meanwhile, I've chatted to other people on the side of the fence, and like some of my favorite people in the world, people who are security experts, who are privacy experts, and yourself, Paul, you know how highly regarded you are. We used to do like a weekly show together. And so I'm trying to piece together these two sides of the argument. And I think a lot of people could really do with some education about what this protocol will actually do for crypto transactions. So give us a bird's eye view of all this.
Yeah, so I think just like you said, really in order to understand AOPP, you first have to understand what exactly is it trying to solve, and what is this regulation that's coming about that AOPP was built to help facilitate. And that sounds terrible. It's like, what do you mean AOPP is facilitating some regulation? Well, yes and no. First of all, the regulation that you'd mentioned, the travel rule, is really specifying that if you're an organization that holds cryptocurrency funds, then in order for you to transfer the funds outside of that ownership, like say you're Kraken, say you're Coinbase, say you're Binance, you're holding people's funds, you're a fully custodial. Realize this regulation is only on custodial services. That's all it is. If you're fully custodial and you want to transfer the funds out, you have to make sure that the user that owns those funds is fully KYC'd, and you're transferring out to another service that also KYCs the user, and you are sending KYC information of the sender, and KYC information of the recipient is available on the recipient side. So it's this unfortunate, it's exactly what crypto people hate. No question about it. We hate the fact that all this is KYC'd, the source and destination is KYC'd. And if you're going to send it to the user's own wallet, it's saying that if you're going to send it to an arbitrary address, it's not with a centralized exchange, it's not with a custodian, then that address has to be owned by the user, which you have already KYC'd. So I can't take funds from Coinbase using my account and ask Coinbase to withdraw it to your address, Naomi. That's what this regulation is saying. Now, how fair is that? I don't like regulation, but this is effectively how banks do transfers today. So if you're a custodial service as a bank, in order for you to transfer the funds out, it has to go to another custodial service that is KYC the entity, or it has to go to the person that already is KYC'd and owns that account, such as if you go up to a teller and you withdraw cash. They have to, that can only be withdrawn to that person that owns the account, right? I can't have my mom go into a bank and withdraw cash from my account, right? Even if I sign and say, please give cash to my mom, they won't do it. So
can I just reiterate
that?
Because I think that that's an important thing that a lot of people don't realize. And it's something that I didn't realize until I started to chat with someone about AOPP at the roundtable, actually, recently. I didn't realize that I couldn't pay people out of my own account. It's a violation of the terms and services of exchanges. And I know so many people who do it. They'll just pay someone or they say, oh, just deposit it in my exchange or whatever. You actually are not allowed to use someone's crypto exchange or custodial service unless you are the owner of that. You can't pay someone out of your exchange account. You can't have someone deposit in there. And so the AOPP rule, I think a lot of people are looking at this and saying, well, you're doxing people. This is about adding addresses and personally identified information to this protocol. And you have to prove that it's you before a transaction takes place. Your argument all along has been, actually, if it's a KYC exchange, they already have this information. So it's actually not changing anything. So walk me through why this isn't such a big deal that people are making it out to be.
Right. So AOPP, first of all, what does it even stand for? So it's Address Ownership Proof Protocol. It's effectively a way for a user to prove that they own that address. So if I go to Kraken and I say, hey, Kraken, withdraw my money, and I just copy and paste an address, I could be copying and pasting your address, Naomi, and then sending money out to somebody else. And all that the AOPP protocol is providing is a good and easy way for me to prove that I own the address by signing a message. That's really it. That proves that I own the private key, and I'm signing a message that proves that my private key corresponds to the public address that I'm sending to the exchange. So people that are worried about privacy say, well, oh my gosh, it's not even a privacy issue. It's you're conforming to the government is what the biggest argument that I hear on Twitter is. And you're facilitating them passing this regulation that they shouldn't be passing, and Bitcoin didn't get to $1 billion valuation by us bowing down to the government. But you're already doing that when you use a centralized exchange. You're already giving them an address, and whether it's yours or not, that exchange will assume it's yours. And if there's any illicit activity that they detect from that address, they're going to blame it on you, whether it's yours or not. And you've already KYC'd with that exchange. They know all of your personal information. All that AOPP is doing is saying, okay, well, now I'm going to sign a message that the exchange provides to the user through this protocol, sign it with your private key, and send that signature back to the exchange, somewhat proving that you own it. And that's not even a hard proof. In theory, I can have you sign the message, Naomi, and then send that signature along with your address. It's actually kind of like fake security, right? It doesn't actually prove a whole lot. But if it's good enough to the government, fine. It at least allows people to withdraw their money. Realize that if we didn't have something like AOPP or didn't have message signing, realize that we're actually going to bifurcate funds. We're going to actually make it such that funds that stay on exchanges don't ever leave. They now have to go between custodial services that fully KYC all of their users. How does someone then take it out and put it into their hardware wallet, put it into their self-custody app? There won't be a way to do so. So that inherently lies the argument. Now, I will give credit to one thing. I opened up a discussion on Twitter saying, okay, I want to hear people's legitimate concerns about this protocol. What are the reasons why they think it's compromising privacy? And there was one legitimate concern by the Blue Mat, right, one of the core devs in Bitcoin. And I accept that, although it's very nuanced. And the concern is that the message that an exchange might have the user sign can contain personal information. It can have your name, address, phone number, email address, social security, whatever the exchange wants. And AOPP doesn't specify what the exchange should provide. It just says, hey, exchange, you're the VASP, virtual asset service provider, put whatever you want in the message, have the user sign it. Now, the examples that they put on the AOPP website probably is what scared so many people. They gave examples of actual PII information. We call it personal identifiable information. And that was being transmitted only from the exchange to the user's wallet. That's all that was happening. And the user was signing that and sending a signature back. So the concern
and just to
that
reiterate,
that had,
I just want to like clarify what that means. So it means that only the person who's receiving that message and the exchange can see that information. This isn't public on the blockchain. This is literally just between these two parties, right?
It's only between those two parties. There's no centralized repository of this personal information. AOPP is purely a protocol. They don't even see it. And that was one of the big criticisms. People said, oh, AOPP is going to get all this information. No, it's just a protocol. There's no servers behind AOPP. It's purely how does a wallet talk to an exchange? So effectively, this exchange, it could send this personal identifiable information. The wallet would show it to the user, hey, here's what you're signing. They would sign, and then the signature would go back to the exchange. So that information never leaves the holding of people that already had it. However, the criticism is that there could be a man-in-the-middle attack whereby that QR code that you're scanning with your phone or the button that you're tapping, which launches into your wallet, that contains the personal identifiable information. It contains that message to sign, and it could be intercepted by a different app. For example, that's a button that has a kind of a Bitcoin link, Bitcoin : and a payment address. If you've ever experienced trying to pay a Bitcoin payment button on your phone, it could launch arbitrary apps. You kind of don't know which app is going to get launched. Same thing can happen. There's a button and you want it to launch into, for example, Edge, but maybe it launches into some other app that handles that link, and that app could get that personal information. So that's a legitimate concern. Although realize that's not that different from clicking on a Bitcoin link. So a payment link, for example, can include additional metadata. When you go to a merchant and they have that button, pay with Bitcoin, or it's a QR code to scan, that could contain other information in metadata fields, which could have your name, it could have your address, it could have a bunch of things. So it's not actually that much worse, but those payment links typically don't have that info. They usually have information about the person receiving the payment, the merchant. They don't usually have information about the person paying. However, with AOPP, the exchange will kind of be motivated to put personal information by that way you're signing that's who I am. And we have not integrated AOPP, just so people are clear. At Edge, we have not integrated AOPP. We agreed to evaluate and potentially implement the protocol, but we didn't implement it yet. And as of this point, I would only implement it if that message was a full random number that fit a certain spec. Like we say, it's a 64-digit hex value, and that's it. And if it was anything other than that, it wouldn't get signed. And with that change into the protocol, I can't find a flaw in the protocol. I don't know, and no one has given me any good criticism other than blah, blah, you're bowing down to government regulation and blah, blah, blah. And they're not actually arguing the point. So until someone give me a good argument, I'm open to it. Please put in the show notes,
add it.
Well,
we actually asked Twitter. We said, what are your thoughts on all of this? What are your issues? And we do this every show. So every Friday when you want to submit something to be read on the show, just look out for our tweets and you can respond there. So I ask people, is this a privacy nightmare or is this overblown? So a lot of people talking about AOPP in the security world right now. And so Elena, who's very well known in the crypto world, who's, very well known for her work with Satoshi Labs, she said, you seem to forget one thing. This is for people who have already compromised their privacy by touching coins on a regulated exchange. You said that yourself, Paul. So AOPP seems to make withdrawals easier, and hence, yes, this is something we could implement. So, I think that point that you raised, Paul, about centralized exchanges, like if people really do care about anonymity, just don't use centralized exchanges. That's where you're cutting your anonymity off, not with just a protocol of how it's done with your wallet. Because by the rules of the exchange, you literally are not allowed to withdraw to anything other than your own wallet anyway. So all the AOPP is doing is saying, yes, this is my wallet. I confirm. And so it's just very interesting that there have been so many people who are worried about this, digging in. And I think a lot of people who are just confused, they hear, this wallet's doxing my account. They're thinking, is this doxing all addresses, like the master address from which all my other addresses are derived? It's no, it's not at all. It's just that specific address you're withdrawing to. This isn't going to dox all of the other addresses associated with it. And you responded that on Twitter, Paul. You've been replying to people, trying to educate them about this. But then I had another tweet go out from someone, and he said, I think it was something along the lines of, that's going to pop up on the screen there. So they said, this is a historical precedent that you're setting. We don't want to give into government, which is, again, what you were saying, Paul, was like a big concern about this. Just as we wrap up here, because we're running out of time, do you think that this is a concern? Like, is this in any way like bowing down to this like requests from government? Is this making it easier for them, or is this just a non-issue in your
it's not at all making it easier for them, because the travel rule, they're going to pass one way or another, right? They're going to pass it one way or another. This is making it easy for people to get their money off of the exchanges. Without protocols like this, in order for you to prove that you own the address, you would have to manually copy and paste a message that the exchange would provide, and then take that, paste it into a wallet that even supports arbitrary signing of messages, and then sign the message, take the signature, manually copy that, and put that back into the exchange. So the user experience would be absolutely terrible. And the average person now, which it's already hard to get people to take their money off an exchange. Imagine now if they had to do all of those steps to get the money off, we'd end up having a tremendous amount more money just left on these exchanges, which isn't our end goal. Our goal is like, you want privacy, you got to get the money off. Even if you compromise one address, because you've withdrawn to it, you can at least then go and use a mixer or just transact and move it into other coins and whatnot. To me, without this protocol, you're gonna have a terrible user experience, and only power users will ever have ownership of their own funds for the people that do use exchanges.
Absolutely. And if people really care about privacy, I mean, why soon Zcash will be, yes, BISC is wonderful. Your decentralized exchange, you're not going to have the liquidity of a centralized provider, but if anonymity really is your go-to and your preference, then absolutely you should be walking the walk, not just talking the talk and shutting down these things. But, also we got ThorChain, and they're integrating with Zcash soon. If you're able to just switch into Zcash, shielded Zcash, you've just cut off the chain analytics right there. So great tool. Exactly. And ThorChain is completely decentralized exchange. So lots of tools out there. If you don't want to deal with that, there's no need to be using centralized exchanges anymore. Like when you could be receiving crypto, it's more common in our everyday lives. Paul, how many years have you been paying people salaries at Edge Wallet in crypto? How many years has it been?
Gosh, now it's been pretty much since day one, and we've been around since 2014. So it's been 8 years that we've been paying 100% salaries in Bitcoin. And so it is Bitcoin. It's not as private as Zcash, but people can then move it after the fact. But definitely far more private than other payment methods, obviously. So our banks don't necessarily know how much we're paying people. Maybe the payment, obviously we still have to file taxes, and there's that aspect, but people are receiving crypto from a viewpoint of both privacy and autonomy and control of their own funds. We at least enable that aspect of the ecosystem.
Well, we at NBTV appreciate you walking the walk and being a trailblazer with that, being one of the first companies in the world to be paying their employees with crypto. So thank you for that. And also thanks for coming onto the show and just explaining what all of the ruffled feathers have been angry about regarding AOPP. Very nuanced, very complicated issue, but you're always so eloquent in your explanations, and we appreciate your time.
Well, thanks. Always happy to share, educate people, and hear their feedback. So once again, after this, please ping me on Twitter, put a comment into the show notes, and express your honest, real concerns. And hopefully this has educated you, and maybe the concerns have died down. But overall, I think it's a good positive movement in the industry.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Paul. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. This wraps up our Friday Crypto Beat show for this week. A lot to digest there. Check out the show notes afterwards in the description. Find all the links. Follow the people that we had on the show. They're such wealth of information. And hit that like button. If you haven't, please consider it, because it really does help us. Our video gets hidden from people by YouTube. So the more people who hit that, the better it helps us with the algorithm. So to comments on our show after the fact, let us know, like, what was your favorite segment? Then that'll let us know what you guys want to see in future, and always helps us. So hit the subscribe, hit the bell, and go and have yourselves a wonderful weekend. We appreciate you. We appreciate you being interested in financial autonomy, in data autonomy and sovereignty. You guys are awesome. Go have a wonderful weekend. Catch you later.
Becoming a threat. So you know rappers like to rock pools. I got fools who guess when swimming, but I'm collecting.